to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Newton?
Here.
Mr. Parati?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Facto?
Here.
Mr. Randall?
Here. Okay, the purpose of the public hearing is to hear comments for or against applying for the CDBG grant. Okay, the CDBG grant that we're talking about is for housing. This would allow low to moderate income homes to be able to get funding to help with projects that are needed around their residence. Now, it's not for to change carpet or the color of the carpet. It's for, you know, maybe they need a roof, or maybe their bathroom is under need of repair, or a foundation could be in need of repair, things like that. We have got a hold of Friends of the North Country and contracted with them to administer the grant for us and to help us through that process. We have used them in the past. If I'm not misspeaking, I think it was around 2017 we started with the CDBG program. It's been a few years. To my understanding, there is a need and there is a waiting list of projects and residents that are in need of those projects being completed. So there's no guarantee that we will get the CDBG grant, but we won't know unless we apply. As far as speaking as a town supervisor, I believe it's a very worthwhile program to go after, and I'm thankful that Friends of the North Country is willing to help us out with that again. It's a very, very paper-intensive grant, the CDBG grant, so I had to think a little bit before I went ahead and did it, because I just closed one out on the last one we did a year ago, and we had to make a few modifications and a few changes in the way we'll do business in the future. But with that, I guess I'll leave it open to the floor for public comment. And just so all are aware, it is a stipulation for the CDBG grant application that we hold a public hearing. It is part of the process.
Crazy.
Coming up, that's not going to.
I do just have an article I have to read for the public hearing as well, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It's quick. The town of Schuyler Falls is holding this public hearing to encourage citizen participation and meet the requirements of 24 CFR 570.486 and New York State Homes and Community Renewal's Citizen Participation Plan, as amended, which require applicants to follow a citizen participation plan. Prior to submitting a CDBG application, applicants must issue a public hearing notice and hold one public hearing allowing for citizen feedback on the community and economic development needs of the applicant community and any proposed projects. The town intends to submit a housing rehabilitation application in the amount of $250,000 to the New York State Homes and Community Renewal for Community Development Block Grant, Small Cities, CDBG, program during the 2022 program year. These funds will be issued for scattered site, single-family, owner-occupied existing housing rehabilitation throughout the town. All project funds will be used to benefit low to moderate income households or for removal of slums and blight. While it is not anticipated that the proposed activities will result in displacement or relocation, the town will adhere to any anti-displacement and relocation plan if the application is awarded. The CDBG program is administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal and will make available to eligible local governments approximately $10 million for the 2022 program year for housing, economic development, public facilities, public infrastructure, and planning activities, with the principal purpose of benefiting low to moderate income persons. Program income is not expected to be available for the proposed program. The town expects to make grants available to households to repair substandard housing. The town will consider citizen comments in the preparation of the final application. A copy of the final application shall be made available to the public. And then at this time, the town welcomes citizen comments if needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I believe a reasonable amount of time has elapsed. If there is no more public comments, at this time I make the motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a copy of what you read?
I'm not sure, but I can send it. I can send it to you. Or actually, I can give you this one if you want. There you are.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Alright, I think we forego with the pledge of allegiance, but we will call the regular July monthly meeting to order at this time. Roll call.
Mr. Newton?
Here.
Mr. Parati?
Here.
Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Facto?
Here.
Mr. Randall?
Here. Alright, all board members have been provided with a copy of the minutes of the last meeting. A motion will be entertained to approve and accept the minutes of the regular meeting of June 28, 2022, providing that there are no additions, deletions, or corrections. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Bruno,
Second.
Mr. Newton. Roll call.
Discussion, please.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Resolution 2257, as amended, but from the suggestion of the town attorney, when I'm looking at the amended portion of it, it seems like it could be a typographical error on this thing, simply. I know it's extended, but the language that Mr. McCormick had recommended be removed appears back in on the amended. See, like right here. See what I mean? That right there was going to be removed, and then
The circle part?
right. Look at the first one and what the town attorney had mentioned. If you take a look at it, you have to back up to the first one.
Up here, you mean?
Oh, nope. Could I show you?
Yeah.
Okay. Right here on the last paragraph.
This one?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have it written in front of me, right, but I think it used to say, we'll move forward with the upgrades. And all we did was add the words with the
Yeah.
process of pursuing.
And that's what I was looking at,
Yeah.
because what you
It-
circled here
Right.
was on the attorney's advice to move forward with a process for pursuing the upgrade.
Okay.
And
Are
that's
you
all
on
we
that as well?
interjected with that.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about it, that's all. Okay. That's fine.
So that's why
That's
we
fine.
had that after
Okay.
the meeting,
Nope,
make
no
sure I got the
problem.
I
wording.
think those are the words that
That's what,
I
yeah.
suggested adding.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm all set.
Any further discussion? All right, if there's no further discussion, can we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Parati?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes. All right, that brings us to addressees, and tonight we should have Lisa Brown. Good evening, Lisa. She's from CST, Computer Protector Software kind of company, and she would like to speak and tell us a little bit about what her company actually does and what they can do for the town. I've been talking to one of her counterparts for about, I think, almost a month now, and thank you. And basically, I want to compare notes to what they can offer us and what Mr. Carlson, who is our tech guy here at the town offices, and Mr. Pat Garso, I want to see what he has already built in or what he's building in. But without further ado, go ahead, Lisa. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Brown. As he said, I own a CST Group, which is based out of Malone. Company's been around since 2000, so we are not a new company. One of my first clients was a municipality, and they still are. So my company specializes in working with municipalities because of their compliancy. So there's a ton of compliancy that the state and federal government are asking of municipalities, whether that be towns, villages, counties. And I'm trying to give some guidance on how we can better serve you as a whole. So the supervisor and I spoke back in April with regards to just what is the town doing. And so my goal today is to simply provide you with information and then answer any questions. So what my company's goal is to make sure that you have the resources that you need to secure your technology. The state is saying that you have to have certain things in place. And on the back of that handout I just gave you, this just came down in March with regards to kind of a recommendation for town, municipalities, and villages on kind of the things that you should be doing. Now, for some towns, you can do it if you want to take on the risk. There's not a lot of towns that want to do that. Either they don't have a skilled person or they really can't afford to hire somebody to manage their technology for them. There's just no need because you're so small. So what my company does is we ultimately become your IT department. So instead of hiring one person, you hire my team and you get us all.
And it's about compliancy. It's about making sure that certain things are happening with automation on your computer, patches happening, are the updates happening, are your scans happening, or do you have somebody to call? Is compliancy happening? Are you documenting stuff? Because that's the biggest risk that you guys have, is that you just don't have that data compiled. So from my conversation with the supervisor, you've got about 8 computers, and they range from desktops and laptops that are all town owned. So ultimately, you all are responsible for any technology that's town owned. And that is specifically related to personal identifiable information. So your clerk probably uses something like BAS, your bookkeeper probably uses something like Williamson Law. You collect taxes from your community, and that stuff is all has to be protected. And so I know in talking to the supervisor, we really weren't sure what you were using now. So we couldn't really identify whether you had security in place. I don't know if anything is happening on the managed services as far as automation, stuff that's happening automatically by somebody. I do know you currently have an IT guy. I'm not sure how responsive he is as far as dealing with issues quickly. You guys would know that, and staff would probably know that better than anybody. I do know you've got a domain. I also know that that was due to expire at the end of July, and I'm hoping that your website guy got into your GoDaddy account and verified that you are owner, which is what happens a lot with towns, is you hire somebody to do it on your behalf, but they never verify that it's actually in your name. And just recently I've done that with 2 other towns where they had a domain and they weren't owners. They didn't own it. So we had to struggle to get ownership of that. You don't have secure emails right now. Your emails range from Verizon to Gmail to Yahoo to Charter to Outlook. So there's no consistency with regards to any of your emails, and it's difficult to secure that type of email account. So because you have a domain, you've got resources with regards to having domained emails, like supervisor, and clerk, and bookkeeper, and highway, so that you can all communicate within that domain. And we can, in the future, secure it if we need to. So there's definitely some issues with regards to just my conversation with what I know. And I have no idea if you got a firewall. I'm not sure you know whether or not that is actually happening.
I don't know what one we use. I'm pretty sure that Carl has a firewall built in the system. I know that when we talked to Mr. Garcelle, who was updating the website and is in the midst of also trying to update the Facebook page, that he did, it was $125 to secure our domain, if
Yes.
that sounds about right.
Yes.
And that was the first thing he
Yes.
mentioned that we needed to do. And then at the first training session that we had, he did request that all the employees switch to now the one website, or I should say, website for user. I
Right.
don't know if I'm saying that right, or, whatever you call the charter, or...
Yeah, we definitely,
Carrie,
towns
yes,
towns should be using kind of, if you have a domain, which you do, you have a website, then you should be ultimately using domained emails, and each of you should have your own. And then there's a whole slew of other compliancy that the state is asking you to do. Software compliancy, documentation. Do you all have Microsoft Office? Is that what you're using? Is it licensed? Are you accountable? If you were audited and they asked you for all of the compliancy on your cybersecurity assessment, would you be able to provide it? And right now, I'm not confident you can, just because it's not documented anywhere. So here's what your IT person should be doing, whether that's continue with your current IT guy or whether you hire a firm like mine. They need to be accountable to you. And there's a very fine line with regards to making sure that what they're doing for you is on behalf of the town. So the town should own everything that they're doing, and it should be documented. Everything from user accounts to passwords, and it should be securely documented, and you should be able to request it at any point. So when I asked the supervisor, do you have, you're with 2 Cows, that's where your domain is, it's with GoDaddy, I'm assuming it flipped over. Do you access that? At the time, the answer was, I don't know. I
Probably
don't-
one of the least techie guys that you, I can run a computer and,
And that is common. It's common that tech is normally not what you guys do, right? And so you rely on somebody like me to give you guidance on making decisions as you move forward. And what I found is that a lot of towns will make decisions without having all of the information. And they're spending a silly, ridiculous amount of money on things that are not going to take you into the future. And that's the goal. So the goal of your IT company is that they're accountable to you. You should be able to call them at any point and say, I need documentation. I want somebody to call. If there's an issue, I don't know who you call now. I'm not sure if Carl is responsive. He may be the perfect fit for you. But please understand that there's a lot of things that should be happening on the compliancy side that may or may not be happening now. So I just want to make sure that you all understand that if you continue in the path, that's great. Just try to ask more of what's happening right now, because it's not happening.
can I ask you a question?
You can ask as many questions as you'd like.
Because I've heard this twice now,
Yes.
and half of it's still over my head, to be very honest with you.
I'll try to strip it down.
Well, what I'm asking is, would it be, or do you, sit down, like if we hired you just for a consult at first to see what we got, what we don't got, without going into a multi-year contract or a full-year
Yes.
contract? Would you have a service where you could meet with our 2 guys that work with our systems that could answer those questions for you? And I agree that on my end of things, being that you've now told me it's my responsibility as a supervisor to make sure this is done, another one of my jobs. Now, I would like to know, again, whether or not we are in compliance the best that we can. We are a small town, so, you know, I'm not looking for, you know, $15,000 worth of IT service a year. But it would be very handy and helpful to me, being that I'm on hook for this, to know where we sit, where we stand, and where you think, after you talk to our people that we are working with right now, where we should go or what we need to really address. So I don't know if you could, you know, once you get back to the office, set up a, maybe a rough estimate of what
Yeah.
some kind of consult with that, or unless you have something that the full board could know about right now.
I know that it's easy for us to come and do an evaluation, so we have no problem doing that. It's common for us to step in and do a backdoor kind of understanding of what you got and what you don't have. So I have no problem with doing that, and I'll have to get you a number on
Okay.
what I believe that's
Yeah,
gonna
I didn't
take
want
for
to put you on
time.
the spot, I just didn't know if you had.
No, we
some
definitely would like to be able to
ballpark
come in and
figure.
give you more accurate information, because the information that I have is just from our conversation. So if I can get in and look around and see what you've got for firewalls and what's on your systems, it's important that you have something automation. Automation has to happen. You have to have 365 days, 24/7 monitoring. That's one of the very first things that the state is going to look at, is how are you securing your systems right now? And do you have somebody that's watching it? Because it's not a one and done. Technology is not you buy it and you're good. Technology is an ever-changing, every day, new risks, new assessments. Your cyber insurance, I'm sure you've talked to your insurance company. I can't imagine them not encouraging you to get cyber insurance. And with cyber insurance comes a whole slew of questions that have to be answered honestly. And if you don't answer them honestly, it'll void the policy if you do get a ransomware attack. So there's a whole slew of stuff that it's ongoing. Technology is not something that you can just deploy some Norton antivirus and be done with it. It doesn't work that way anymore. So I would love to do that, Kevin. Let me get you some numbers and I'll come out and take a look at what you've got.
And,
Yes.
do you have any ballpark on if, say we hired you permanent, what the annual range of costs would be for the services you're talking about?
I know in our email communication, I should have given you some type of number. Kevin, do you know what that was?
I didn't bring it in with me tonight, but that's all right. I don't want to put you on the spot again. But if you can do that, I will share it with the whole board.
Okay.
And then, like I said, if, once you put together the consult, I'll contact everybody.
Yeah, because I can provide you with an actual
personal
estimate. It is an ongoing cost. So any managed service provider, any company like myself, is going to charge you a monthly fee. And that monthly fee is basically because we have to protect you, and we have to do it 24/7, 365. And we have to monitor it, and I have staff in my office that do that. So it is a monthly cost, and you should be paying a monthly cost, even to your current IT guy, if in fact he's truly protecting you the way he should be. Because his software costs money, and that in turn costs you money. So you need to make sure that somebody is protecting you, and that you've got somebody to hold accountable. So if an auditor comes in, or your insurance company wants something, or a vendor needs something, that you guys are not playing monkey in the middle between your IT person and your vendors. Because that is no fun at all. So it's a matter of making sure that you can call somebody to give you guidance and say, hey, we've got this coming, or we've got that coming, or this auditor's coming, or the insurance company's asking for cyber security questions and compliancy. We do that for you. So having a resource that's going to be able to take care of the compliancy for you and give you somebody to call it's invaluable. So
Definitely gives you a little bit of peace of mind, I would say.
yes,
2 questions.
yes,
We got this list that you just gave us,
yes.
and I know that that's not a complete list because you were just talking about insurance.
Correct.
Is there any way we could get 1 or 2 type of list to go over just to see what is required?
Yes,
Completely?
CISA actually provides the state with a list of what is specific to local municipalities. I sent a copy over to the supervisor, but I will make sure that he gets that kind of itemized list of
Okay.
kind of what it, and I will be honest in saying, there's a lot of it that is nonsense. There's a lot of it that that is hard. It's because you're so small, it's difficult to meet the expectations of the state and federal government and still maintain a budget, right? And the state is forever throwing at you all sorts of things that you have to implement without providing the funds to make that happen. So I get it. I do budgets with my towns every year. So there's some of it that I would lower on the priority list, and others need to happen sooner rather than later. Because the fines that you would get if you were ever attacked with any data breach at all are astronomical. You want to try to prevent that, right? You want to try to at least prove to the state that you have taken every effort in making sure that the data that you hold is protected. That's the goal. That's what the state is asking you. They're asking you to take every effort in protecting the information, and having somebody that's looking at it to make sure that you're protected, which is hence the security and the firewall. Somebody should be looking at that.
The other question I have
Yes.
is, what does CISA stand for?
It is the Computer Information Systems something. It's actually a state agency, CISA. And to be honest with you, I can't remember what the acronym stands for. But they are responsible for the cyber security with regards to how that's doled out on the state side. So, and it's CISA.gov is the website. And they dictate to me how I manage the security. They dictate how I handle each company that I work with. Different regulations fall into different timelines and organizations. So CISA is the one that doles that out.
What towns do you have right now?
Oh my God, I have probably 30 or 40 of them.
Somebody so that, local.
I work with Ausable, Chester, Colton. I have a ton, Malone. We have small ones too, like Fort Covington, who has fewer than 5. Morristown, we just got Norfolk. Ausable, Chester are this end, are the big ones.
Chestertown?
Chester,
Chester.
yes. Yep. Chester.
Down in Warren County?
Yes, yes. So we manage basically 4 counties. So we do Franklin, Clinton, Essex, St. Lawrence, and we just stepped into Warren. And we stepped into Warren out of need. They needed somebody that, and they, word of mouth, they found us. So we do a lot of towns. I do 30 or 40 of them. And I've had them a long time. One of my first clients was Malone, and they still are a client. So, and they're a little bigger than you guys, but
Yeah, so the major thing I wanted to know, like I said, was whether or not you were able to sit down with
Yes.
who we have right now, and that wasn't a conflict for you talking to other kind of people, but there, I don't think there's anybody here, and I don't want to speak for everybody that would be able to answer those questions, but those guys would be able to answer those questions and tell you exactly what we have and what we don't have.
the goal is whether you choose me as my company as your IT provider, or whether you continue with your current, or whether you hire somebody completely different. You have to understand what the expectations are. Your expectations right now are too low. They're too low because you don't have all the information in one place. You're not really sure what's happening and what's not happening. You got to raise your expectations. And in doing that, you're going to raise accountability. So, and there's a fine line because it will get messy. I will tell you the first 3 to 6 months when I step into a town is hard and it's painful because you go from nothing to the minimum compliancy, and it's some work for us on the back end to make sure that we are meeting all of the guidelines that the state and federal government are asking of you. So I will be honest in saying more painful for us than for you, but it does take us a little bit of time to get you to the compliancy level of just making sure your data is protected, and that we don't have any current virus ransomware or anything on your network seeping in. So it is a little bit painful, but it is about accountability. You need to, I hold myself and my company to a very high standard with regards to accountability. You need to be able to ask me for any data you want, and I need to be able to provide that to you. And it needs to be in one place. I was talking to Kevin about our DTMs, which is just a detailed technology manual. We have it for every client. And it's the only way that we can keep track of from client to client, whether it's an account or a password. All of that stuff gets documented, and if you're audited, here's their book. Everything is in one place. It's about policies and procedures. How do you offboard an employee that leaves? When they're gone, how do you lock them down? What are the steps in doing that? Where's that process written? Where's your cybersecurity insurance policy? Where's the compliancy on that? And what are we lacking? Because the insurance company will truly indicate to you what you are lacking, and they would want us to work towards fixing the deficiencies. So it's a lot of work to make sure that you guys are at least headed in the right direction to make sure that your data is secure. Make sense?
So would you take over for our present IT guy?
Yes. Yes, and I would manage all of your vendors. So the best way for us to work with anything technology would be to step you all out of the middle. So what happens a lot of times, which is how we implemented it kind of as a process for us, is you may have an issue with a printer, and you may have a printer vendor, right? And you call the printer vendor, and the printer vendor says, it's not my problem. It's your software guys or your hardware guys. And then it goes back and forth. They play the blame game. That's what vendors are famous for doing. And we just don't want that to happen. So everything goes through my company, ideally. If you want a great new thing, and it's technology based, and it's gonna be tied into your network, I would like a conversation to make sure that it's not going to interrupt your current flow and traffic, and it's not gonna hurt anything, and it'll integrate well. So having one person, one company take care of everything technology is just gonna save you some stress. So, and you want somebody to call. So when something happens, who do you call? And how long does it take for the problems to be resolved? That's the timeline, right? If you're okay with not knowing, when the guy's gonna come to fix an issue, I mean, that's one thing, but when things aren't working, that's a completely other issue.
If we did have a problem, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Does that include, when you take over, does that include our current webmaster?
No, so we don't do websites.
Okay.
So your website, I would work with him, is what I would do. I don't do anything like that. I would give him guidance if he needed it. I would take care of any of the GoDaddy backend stuff that would have to happen when the website goes live. But beyond that, no, I don't do websites. And I don't do phones. I would work with your phone vendor. So whether that is maybe Charter, maybe Spectrum does your phones right now?
First Light, is it?
Are they VoIP?
Pardon?
Are they VoIP? Are they using your internet?
I know that there are portions of the phones that go through the internet because it's all, what's the name of that cable that, well, I know it's computers.
Yeah. So what the goal would be, and you should have a book at your disposal at all times of who is managing your stuff. Who's your vendors? Who's providing you with internet? Who's providing you with phones? Who's your contact? What's the account number? Who do I call when stuff isn't working? So that all needs to be documented so that we have a clear understanding of how the town is managing the technology. It may have been a great decision, it may not have been a great decision, right? So in order for us to move forward, we've got to have contact people. And it's all got to be in one spot. It's all got to be accessible to everyone. And it shouldn't be a secret. And it should not be held hostage. It should not be held hostage. So and it just happened with another municipality we just took on. The old IT people are not cooperating. They're not giving us anything. If they created accounts, So now I have to beg vendors. And I have to send in copies of the supervisor's driver's license to prove that they really are. And it's a lot of work because it wasn't done correct from the beginning. So it should not be a complicated thing. I will tell you that 6 months out, 8 months out, this is not going to be a complicated thing because we're going to smooth everything out and we're going to make sure that everything is accounted for and everything is accountable and everything is documented in a book. And we're taking steps and making the right decisions as we move forward. And that includes your asset inventory. How many computers do you have? How old are they? When they purchased? Are they working well? Are they not working well? Do we have an employee that is struggling with performance and the computer's not working fast enough? So that stuff is all stuff that we would track on the back end. You would get your asset inventory. It just happens when we install our software. And we can remote in to fix issues. So we don't have to come here. If all is good, you should rarely see me or any of my staff. I will do quarterly business reviews with the supervisor every quarter just to touch base, make sure that we're all good, make sure that there's no projects that are coming up that I need to be aware of, any stuff that's happening that is going to involve some access to the network. I do quarterly business reviews. It's mandatory. And it just gives me and the supervisors, the owners of the company, an opportunity to really just chit chat about anything coming up so that there's no surprises. But ideally, when all is going good, you shouldn't see us a lot. You should just be able to call. Say, hey, I can't print. And one of my staff members will remote in and fix it. And it shouldn't take 2 days. It should take 5 minutes.
Download new software and all that.
If
stuff?
absolutely necessary, sure. Yep. Yeah, everything can be done remotely for us except for hardware delivery. Any computer, any delivery of anything physical, I would send your account manager here.
Would have nothing to do with the court system, right?
I think that's
Those would
different,
be
the court
separate, right?
system.
It's a very fine line with the court systems. So I will respect your judge. That's what I will do. They use a company that's called SCI. They go through New York courts. New York courts does not provide them with any automation. So if they are in your network, I will suggest that we protect them. Most judges say absolutely because they don't know. New York courts provides them with Bitdefender and Crap Cleaner, CC Cleaner. That's what the New York courts provides them. There is no automation. So there's a struggle with regards to the courts because New York courts implies that the systems belong to them, and they do to some degree. They all come from New York courts. Your court system should have 3 systems, 2 desktops and a laptop, and the laptop's used for recording. All of those systems should be protected if they're on the same network. So if they use the same internet connection, I gotta protect them. Another town, we did not protect it wasn't us, but the court was not protected. They got a ransomware attack. It flew through the entire town. Because they believed that New York courts had their back, and New York courts does not. They will provide them with certain levels of antivirus, but there's really not anything managed happening. There's no automation happening. Updates, patches, scans, none of that is happening. So my advice is if the court is in this building and they're using town-owned internet, then they get added to the list. Or they sign off. Make sense?
Any other questions? It's a lot.
I'm sorry,
There's a lot of
I can put
information.
together I will
I've
put
heard
together
that
a
sometimes.
list of what the state is kind of suggesting. And some of it, I'm always worried about the list, because some of it is stuff that I'll push down on the priority, because it's impossible, some of the stuff that they're asking. It's much more difficult. The things that are a higher priority are stuff that we would take care of for you, and then we would grow into checking things off the list as we work together. And then I will create some estimates for you so that you can clearly see exactly what it would cost with your system counts. And my charges are based on systems. It's based on computers. So if you have 8, it's based on 8 systems. If that number goes down, then the monthly cost adjusts. If it goes up, the monthly cost adjusts. I will tell you statistically, the numbers that the supervisors give me are rarely accurate. So Kevin says 8. I'm pretty confident you have more like 10 or 11.
No, no, trust me now.
Based on your departments, right? So I know you. I work with you all the time. So I kind of know what your departments have. So just on a regular count, if it's 8, I swear I will give you something wonderful.
We'll leave that to be determined.
That's right. So let me see if we can get something scheduled where I can come out and take a look at actually what you have.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to make a better idea of how we would proceed.
All
Makes
right, I
sense?
appreciate it, Lisa. Just give me a rough ballpark of what you think like inside you need to sit down with those two and a couple of us maybe.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there.
I will
Maybe
let
go
you-
right out of work session.
I'll give you some options on dates and you can just throw it back to me.
Thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Thank you guys so much for taking
Thank
the
you.
time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
You were very informative again.
Thanks.
Safe trip.
Thanks.
Okay. Communications, petitions, I don't have any. That brings us to the monthly reports. Can I get a motion to file on monthly reports?
Motion.
And Mr. Newman
Second.
and Mr. Parati. Roll call.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Parati?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Yes.
Receipts. Town clerk, $1,222. Macy Lane Water, $1,809.63. Morrisonville Water, $14,944. Woods Mills Water, $5,645.70. Justice Barber, $1,679. Justice Van Ortwick, $2,464. Cash receipts, $550. New York State Corrections, they were, just to give you a little background on that they sponsored Bootleg, which is going to be the music in the park on September 23rd. So they were nice enough to do that for us. They gave us a $550 donation for that band that night, which will pay for the band. So can I get a motion to accept the cash receipts?
Motion.
Mr. Bruno
Second.
and Mr. Facto. Roll call.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Parati?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes. No minutes of the planning board, minutes of the zoning board dated 6/20/22. Can I get a motion to file this?
Motion.
Mr.
Second.
Parati. Can I get it by Mr. Nguyen? Roll call.
Mr. Newton?
Yes.
Mr. Parati?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Facto?
Yes.
Mr. Randall?
Yes. Okay, that brings us right to councilman.
Couple questions quickly.
Mm-hmm.
How is the website going right now?
Very slow.
I actually spoke to Pat
Did you?
Garson this afternoon. Yeah.
I can tell you what he has been telling me. I know Mike spoke to him. If you wanna go ahead, no, Mike, go ahead.
It's good. Go ahead.
So, I know Sam was having a fit because he was trying to tying himself in knots because he was trying to get the summer programs up so that the kids could actually sign up for them. And he ended up missing some deadlines because it was taking Mr. Garsol some time to get that. From what he thought he needed and what Sam was explaining, I know there was some confusion there. Interpretations on the eye of the beholder, so to speak. The last time that I spoke to him, they gotten that worked out. But one of the big things that he explained to me is he's rebuilding the programs. So, for instance, for the youth programs, once somebody logs in, creates their password and their user ID, and they become part of that website, it's gonna pretty much auto-populate all their information for everything they sign up for then on out. They don't have to sit there and edit it. It'll automatically populate and it'll send right to Sam. They also keep the records for the previous years so that he can access them. So if somebody didn't sign up where they had last year, that'll pop up, you know, a block from what I understand so that he can contact them. So he said it's a lot of work. I'm not a tech guy. I've said that 10 times already tonight, and I don't mind admitting my shortcomings, but I'm just not a techie guy. So with that, that's where we are. I'm at the behest of him and what he can explain to me, and also what I can grasp of what he's telling me, because he uses some pretty techie terminology sometimes. With that, I'll leave it to Mike.
You have something, Rich?
Go ahead. Lonnie.
I talked to him for probably 15 minutes this afternoon. He says that he needs content. We're not giving him enough content to put on. Recently, and I asked him, there was nothing really on the page right today. He said he had a problem just recently with it. I don't think crashing is the right word, but he had a problem, so there's not much up there at all. I asked him why we didn't at least have the stuff that was on the old page, the forms and procedures and all that stuff. And he said there really wasn't anything there. And I said, well, there was. I remember correctly, we had a lot of stuff on there.
Mhm.
And he says some of it was outdated, so on and so forth. So, I told him I was going to report back to you guys and talk to you guys and tell them what we discussed. Said he would come here and work with the girls and upload information, forms, any other content that we wanted on there. So it seems to me like we need to do something to get this thing going. I'm not, with a 15-minute conversation, I'm not a professional in that field either, but there's not anything on the page right now. And he said something, he lost something or crashed something, so I don't know about that. But all I know is when I got on the page today to look for some information, there was nothing, basically. So we have to discuss how we're gonna fix this.
Right, and we've had those conversations. Matter of fact, I can, for you guys, I can show you the emails we've had back and forth, and the text messaging, and I'm like, this has to be up by law. I need this posted to the website. You know, quarter like tonight for the public hearing, and then I said, send me a snapshot as soon as it's on there, so I have backup saying that it was on there, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think the fact that he has never dealt with a town before, and all the legal ramifications are into things, and that some of it can't just wait until he's got the time to do it, and that he has to understand that there are legal obligations on our side where we have to have postings and things of that nature on there. So he's been made well aware by me that, you know, it's not up to where we believe it should be at this point in time. And
So what
yeah,
are our options? What do we do from here?
Go back to Rick.
You miss me?
Yes.
Am I correct in saying that we did have a lot of content on the old website? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and a lot of it was, some of it was outdated, it had been, but a lot of it was, he could have just transferred over. So I don't know. You know, I'm just looking at the website now and it's
Yeah.
pretty basic information at this point. The meeting's still noticed, but
and I don't,
maybe it's still a work in progress.
I hate to drag you in on this, but he did ask to work with you on the Facebook page and the website, and to my knowledge, you guys, if he has a question, you've been forthcoming and allowing him to.
Yeah, and I haven't
Access
had
what he
much
needs
contact
and-
with him, so I just figured because I gave him the password and sign in, so he was able to access everything through the old website, so he should have just been able to transfer that over. So I don't know.
I know that, and he blamed it on our side of things, which I don't doubt, because we're not in the files, but he said that it was taking forever to download the stuff out of the old website
Mhm.
and then archive it. And he goes, it's not mine, because mine's running at 100. He goes, your pieces of paper were like, you know what I mean, it was taking forever.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to lose anything we had on the old website because it's part of the public records. So he did take some real time. I know that the first month and a half was just archiving, especially the historic files for like Barb and that stuff that were on the old computer. Because you definitely wanted to make sure that we didn't lose anything in the transition, so to speak. But like I said, I am not the tech guy. I don't know how long this stuff takes or what it is. I would have to say, yep, okay, because I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know.
It's just like when we had the meeting with him, what was that, 2-3 months ago? And he said he expected at that point it'd be up and kind of running within a month. And then look where we are now,
Yeah, he
3
told
months
us
down the
within 30
road
days, everything would be on a basic at least.
in the basic. And now we can't even get an agenda up. And that's been going on. I'm not blaming anyone here, but he's involved in that. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
The agenda was up tonight, wasn't it?
I couldn't download the
The agenda
agenda.
wasn't working, yes.
It wasn't.
For last night.
I punched on agenda and nothing came up. So, whatever.
So it might have been something like